Okay, let's begin. Um, Thank you for joining us today, and I apologize if the time snafu on the calendar messed anybody up. I'm glad you're able to make it today. My name is Paul Need. I'm with Castle Ventures. Um, Welcome to our webinar today, 9.5 things you can and should be doing with Varonis DA Exchange in 10 minutes. We encourage questions, so please feel free to use the questions tab on the bottom of your screen. We'll answer them. We'll stay as long as the group has questions. Also, we are curious if you could put in the chat, do you own Varonis DA Exchange? If you could add that in, that'd be great. And without further ado, I'd like to introduce Arthur Hedge. He's the president and co-founder of Castle Ventures, and he will be presenting today. Arthur.
Thank you, Paul. Good afternoon or good morning, everyone. I don't see anyone from Europe, so no good evening necessary today. So again, this is our 10-minute Tuesday. I'm going to go through quickly some ideas that you can take advantage of the Varonis DA for Exchange module. And I'm specifically talking about the DA for Exchange on premise today. So we're talking about how to monitor Exchange on premise. We're not talking about Exchange online. Sure, we'll get one of those 10-minute Tuesdays coming up in the future. But for today, we're going to focus on DA for Exchange. So I'm going to go through my 9.5 hints. First of all, you should review the monitored event types that you are collecting in Exchange. This is a configurable option, and it may have been installed in a way that was not done thoughtfully. I mean, we just took the defaults and put them in place, and no one's gone and checked this. And then you'll show up one day looking for a particular event, and it won't be there because we're not collecting it in Varonis. So within the management console, there is an option for Exchange, and it's a configuration option, and you can go in and select the monitored event types. They are different for Exchange and Exchange Online. They're also different, and you can set them up for different Exchange storage groups. So if you have more than one Exchange storage group in your environment, you can set these up per storage group. So, and that is sometimes of value to organizations. But this is the first thing I do is recommend that you review the monitored event types and make sure you're collecting what you want. Number two, you can use Varonis DA for Exchange to report on mailbox sizes. So it's very simple. Varonis collects lots of interesting data, and if you learn how to manipulate Varonis, you can answer some pretty basic questions, but they're extremely useful. For example, I want to know who's got the biggest mailboxes in my environment. Sure, you can go to Exchange to do that, but if you're not an Exchange administrator, or you just want a quick report, Varonis gives you the ability to do that. So the 4F report, which is one of the handiest reports I find in Varonis, if you go in here and just pick your Exchange server, and then the directory depth of 2, directory depth 1 is the mailbox store, and then underneath that are all the mailboxes. So you only want that top level for each individual user. So directory depth is important here. And then you can go in and select the columns that you want, and you really only need 3 or 4, what file server it is, i.e. what Exchange storage group you're using, the directory name, the access path, and then if you pick the size of folders and subfolders as one of the options in your column, you'll get the size of each of the Exchange mailboxes in your environment. And hey, you can go pick on the guy who's got 25 gigs worth of video stored in his mailbox that he's sharing with his brother. Number 3, you can use Varonis as a poor man's data loss prevention tool. If you don't have a DLP tool, one of the things that you can go do is go figure out all the people that are sending stuff like Excel spreadsheets, zip files, PowerPoint decks, Word documents, things like that, and they're sending them to Gmail accounts. So it's very useful to be able to do this, and it's a poor man's data loss prevention tool. You can see if people are sending company presentations to their home email or to their sister or their brother. I also, I'm not showing you the whole thing here, will typically exclude any email subject that includes the word team or wedding, you'll see that that happens all the time. You can figure out who's getting married in your organization by running this report, because you'll see wedding plans, guest lists, things like that, and you'll see who's a team soccer or baseball coach, because you'll get team rosters going back and forth to work email. Those are two very important things for people: weddings and managing your kids' team. So that drives a lot of that behavior. So if you exclude those two phrases, then this can be a very useful way to spot somebody sending stuff to places they shouldn't. Number 4, use flags to manage your work. I mention this every time I talk about Varonis. Flags are a very useful tool within Varonis to go in and keeping track of things. So if you're migrating from Exchange to Exchange Online, and you want to keep track of what's happening in the Microsoft 365 world, you can flag the folders within Varonis so you can keep track of the mailboxes that have been moved or in progress or whatever the case may be. So they're great for managing migrations to Exchange Online or some other mail service if you want. Number 5, manage the assistant activity. Plenty of organizations, senior level executives have assistants who run their mailboxes for them. You can go in the web GUI, and they actually have, on the left-hand side, if you just pull up all the Exchange events, you'll see the ability to click on events by mailbox owner as an option, and you click on that and you can go in and select yes or no. I just want to see no, all the things by the non-mailbox owners. So then you can refine that, but it gives you insight into what the people who've got access to others' mailboxes are doing. Number 6, one of the things that it's useful, Varonis is useful to do, is finding malicious email. So if one of your coworkers get hit by ransomware or suspected ransomware, and they're smart enough to report it to IT and say, hey, this looks suspicious to me, you can go in and look for other people that have received those mail items but have yet to open them, and you can warn them. Hey, Joe Smith, guess what? We noticed that, badguys.com is sending us emails. You might want to delete this one in your mailbox. So within the 1A report in Varonis, or also the log, you have the ability, it's a little bit harder here. If you drill down to affected objects, then directory objects, and then mail properties, you can build filters by a number of different things. So you can go in and see the mail source. That will be the email address that the mail came from. So if you've got a suspicious email that's been delivered to you, you can then go in and search through Varonis using the 1A report or the web GUI. You can do the same thing in the web GUI, and I find the web GUI easier for this particular search. So if you go in and just look at the mail source contains at badguys.com and hit search, it'll go in and find all the mail that came in from that particular organization. So very handy if something bad has been received by somebody in your organization. You want to find out who else has received it, because this doesn't require that they open it, right? This is just that the mailbox has been received. So that can be useful. You can also see, obviously, if somebody's opened it and if they had attachments, things like that. So this is very useful after the fact to be able to find some potential problems. Number 7, one of the things that you should do if you own Data Advantage for Exchange is validate the servers and services. Exchange is one object in Varonis, so it's one filer that's made up of many servers. However, Varonis is kind of driven by managing one server at a time, but you really need to manage multiple servers. So you could add a new Exchange server to your environment, and Varonis may not know that, right? It's not going to automatically start monitoring that new Exchange server. So if you put one in, you need to go in and manually add it to Varonis so that you're capturing events from those mailbox servers. So you should periodically compare and validate all the Exchange servers you have in Active Directory versus all the servers that are being monitored by Varonis. The second thing that you should do is use a product like SolarWinds or Microsoft SCOM to monitor the services. On a mailbox server, you'll find 2 services running, the Varonis Filer Logger and the Varonis Filer Monitor. Those should both be running. And if they're not, or not installed, then you're not collecting events from that mailbox server. And As a note, there is no firewalk agent like there are on Windows servers. So you see a firewalk agent, then there's probably something wrong with the configuration of that box in a different way. All right, so recommend that you do that. Number 8, create rules to look for deletions. You know, if a malicious actor has taken over somebody's mailbox, one of the things that they often do is either come up with rules or do things to delete their, hide their tracks. So if they're sending out, 1,000 emails, they want to delete them so that they're not noticeable. So this is something that you might want to consider doing, is just to alert on somebody when they've had a large number of deletions in place. So if you go into data alert, you can go in and check based upon the number of events. I'd pick 200 within 2 minutes. And then just select this particular event type: message deleted, message moved. The one issue you do have, there are those people who just kind of habitually, once a month go in and clean up their mailboxes. So those people will fire off this alert off. But it is something that's worth looking at as a way to identify account takeovers on somebody's mailboxes. Number 9, track your high value targets. If you have two or three senior executives, you might want to flag them. Then you can come up with rules on their mailboxes, like on any permission change on those mailboxes, you're going to alert on it regardless of what it is, even if it's approved, so that you know that somebody's going to review that activity. I have one customer, this is the number one reason, the primary reason they bought Varonis was just to monitor the changes to the partner's mailbox, right? The owner of the hedge fund. That's all he cared about. Did somebody get access to my mailbox without my permission? So he got a report every morning of all those permissions and alerted anytime it happened. So again, we call those high value targets. If you do it through a flag, you'll be able to do it, just go in and flag the additional mailboxes, and you don't have to change your data alert rules. And, 0.9.5, if you're struggling, please let us manage your system for you. With that, I will open it up to questions for anyone. And did we have any questions? On these quick webinars, we have not had many questions, so I'd not be surprised. Paul, did anyone tell us whether they actually own DA for Exchange or not?
They did not.
Okay, so that would be curious. Any questions? Please put them on the Q&A or the chat. Either one is fine. All right, well, with that, again, we're trying to keep these short and sweet to provide some value to you. If there's some other topics that you'd like us to cover in the future, please, email me or let me know in the chat, or respond to one of the invitations you've gotten in the past, or when you get a copy of the recording. Please let me know what you'd like to cover. So thank you, and I'll let you get back to your day.